So tomorrow is Oscar Sunday, and it is finally the end of this long awards run, and we finally get to see what's going to take away all the big awards and such. And what I am doing again this year is that I'm going through all 10 Best Picture nominees and ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, for the most part, I am glad that a lot of these movies are nominated. Maybe my top five, I'm definitely glad are nominated. The bottom five, maybe not as much, but the lower the list is more complex, but we'll get into it. But for the most part, I think I am at least fine with these nominees and such. But let's get into my actual 10. Let's get into the actual Best Picture nominees themselves. Where would I rank them all? At number 10 is Train Dreams. This is a movie that is very perplexing to me because it's a movie that I think needed to be seen on the biggest screen possible, but because it was on Netflix, it kind of took away a lot from it. It is an absolutely gorgeous movie, but I just felt like it didn't really do anything that was like exciting or interesting. I think the performances are fine. Again, it's mainly a movie for the cinematography itself, and I think that's it. And I get a lot of the themes of the movie about how, you know, people may not change even if the world changes itself, and I do think it can be interesting, but I also feel like it's kind of been done before. Again, maybe I should have seen this on the big screen, but I felt like this movie just kind of dragged, even though it's probably the shortest of all the Best Picture nominees this year. At number 9 is Begonia. This movie kind of caught me by surprise, mainly because it is nominated for Best Picture, but this movie is not as good as some of the other collaborations between Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone. I don't think it's as good as The Favorite. I don't think it's as good as Poor Things. I think it's better than Kinds of Kindness, but that's really not saying much. I do think that the dynamic between Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons is the standout of this movie. I do think their performances are phenomenal in this movie. I do like the cinematography. I do like Jerkson Fendrick's music, and I'm glad he was nominated for Best Original Score and such. But to me, I think this movie is just way too cynical. Like, especially when you get to the end, and it's like, I kind of get what you're going for, but at the same time, I'm like, well, this movie kind of put me in a bad mood, and I just felt like it wasn't as weird as I thought it was going to be. Also, shout out to Alicia Silverstone, who I also thought gave a good performance in this movie too. But this is a movie that I think it's good, but I know the heights that both Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone have gotten together, and I think that this movie is just kind of beneath them a little bit. At number 8 is The Secret Agent. This is a movie that is very fascinating, but at the same time, there's a lot going on in this movie. I think that this movie changes styles constantly. Like, it's kind of a straightforward thriller. At times, it's a comedy. At times, it's like actually kind of like a noir. And it's like the movie kind of just goes all over the place. And I think that the actors do a phenomenal job, particularly Wagner Moura. He's playing a few characters in the movie, as you see. But there are definitely some moments where it's like, okay, where are you going with this? And it's like, and when I looked it up, it's like, okay, I kind of understand where they were going with this. And I just think maybe it's just been so long at that point. It's like, oh, right, I kind of forgot that was even a plot point in this movie. But I feel like this movie, it tackles something that happened in Brazil, and it reminded me a little bit of I'm Still Here from last year, which I thought that was a really good thriller, and I thought that movie did a really good job exploring the actions that kind of took place around that time. And I think that movie handled the situation a lot more than I think The Secret Agent did. I feel like The Secret Agent is maybe a little too all over the place, but at least Wagner Moura, I thought he did a pretty good job in the movie. And honestly, I would rather see Sentimental Value win Best International Movie over Secret Agents. But speaking of which, at number 7 is Sentimental Value. This movie is very well acted. All four actors in this movie, the four leads in this movie, are phenomenal. Stellan Skarsgård, Renata Reinsev, I'm mispronouncing that name. The actress who plays her sister, also Elle Fanning, surprisingly gives a good performance too. I guess I connected to this movie a little bit more because of the family trauma, and like I feel like that is more fascinating, and I feel like anyone can kind of connect to this movie in some way, whether or not they've had a good relationship with their family or not. I think this movie is very fascinating to kind of look at, even though kind of like Secret Agent is a little slow moving, but I do think by the end it is pretty worth it. At number 6 is Hamnet. This is a movie that it's very well done. It is very well acted. But I need to be in the right mindset to watch. And that is a very high bar to like actually make me say that. But I think the performances, particularly from the two leads, Jesse Buckley and Paul Mescal, are pretty good. I do think it is an absolutely gorgeous film. The score, very well done. The cinematography is gorgeous. The ending alone is just heartbreaking and is just unsettling. And I just think it does have a lot of interesting themes about how people process their grief, and I do think the movie kind of explores different ways that people do that, and I do think it is very fascinating to look at. But then again, this movie is very heavy. This movie is very un. This movie is just. I don't think you'll ever have someone say, "Let's watch Hamnet for a good time." No, this is not one of those movies you do that. This is a movie for reflection, and I think this movie does a pretty good job of that. At number 5 is Frankenstein. Now, Guillermo del Toro has always wanted to make a Frankenstein movie, and I think he did a pretty damn good job with it. I think the production values alone on this movie are just astonishing. This is probably going to sweep all the production categories like production, costume, makeup. No surprise there. The performances are pretty solid for the most part. Oscar Isaac does a good job. Mia Goth does a pretty good job. Jacob Elordi was a standout in this movie. I thought he did a great job in this movie, which is weird because I'm not really a fan of his. And after seeing that movie, I'm like, maybe I'll give you a chance. But I do like the exploration of the relationship between Frankenstein and the creature. I do think it is very fascinating. It is a very gorgeous movie. The movie is very well done, and I think this is one of Guillermo del Toro's better movies in the last few years. At number 4 is F1. Now, normally there's a movie that is just made to be just a pure cinematic experience, just a movie that needs to be seen on the biggest screen possible. And instead of Avatar, they went with F1, and I think that was the better movie overall. F1 is a blast from beginning to end. The performances from Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, Carrie Condon, Javier Bardem, all fantastic. All the sequences in the movie are astonishing. Hans Zimmer's music, just incredible. I was enthralled by this movie, even though this movie is about the same length as something like, say, The Secret Agent, but this movie is incredible. It is incredible to watch on the biggest screen possible, but that is kind of the biggest issue I have with it now. This movie is definitely not as fun when you're watching it at home on a smaller TV, but it's definitely a movie that you needed to be seen on the biggest screen possible, so if you did not see this in a movie theater, you missed out on something incredible. But I'm glad this movie did get a nomination because it just... Now, obviously, this movie doesn't have a great script. I think of all the movies, this is the only one that is not nominated for a screenplay. I don't know. I think Secret Agent may not be nominated either. But you can understand why it's not really nominated for screenplay, but you can tell that everyone in front of and behind the camera just gave it their all. At number 3 is Marty Supreme. Despite Timothée Chalamet's comments about ballet and opera, this movie was very, very intense. This movie was very fascinating. Timothée Chalamet as Marty was very awful in this movie. He was a horrible person, but he was probably one of the more fascinating characters of the entire year. I thought his character was just very unique and very crazy and just very out there and definitely memorable. His performance is great. Odessa Azion's great. Gwyneth Paltrow. Kevin O'Leary, surprisingly, does a pretty good job. I love the editing. I love the intense nature of this movie. It is a movie that is just bonkers and insane, and it just you kind of don't really know where it's going, but I'm kind of glad that I didn't know. This is a movie that could have easily been something that's like, okay, this is just some kind of generic movie, but no, they kind of just... You can definitely tell who the creative mind behind the other Safdie brothers movies are after watching this movie, mainly Josh Safdie. But I think this movie is very well done, and it was definitely a good time to watch in a movie theater. Intense, but good. At number 2, One Battle After Another. This is the movie that I think is going to win Best Picture, and honestly, I won't have an issue with that, because this movie is very well done. My second favorite movie of the year, and I think it mainly contributes to the actors, Paul Thomas Anderson's direction, Leonardo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, Chase Infinity, Teyana Taylor, all do phenomenal work. It is an absolutely gorgeous movie. Johnny Greenwood's music is incredible. It has one of the most unique car chase sequences that I've ever seen in a movie. Sure, it's almost 3 hours long, but this movie is equal parts action movie, drama, comedy. Sean Penn's character, he is both one of the silliest people I've ever seen, but also one of the most menacing people I've ever seen. And to walk that line perfectly in this movie, it's unbelievable. And I wouldn't be surprised if he actually won Best Supporting Actor. That's kind of the thing I'll get into the Oscars about later on. But I do think that this movie is really well done, and definitely one of Paul Thomas Anderson's better movies in the last few years, at least since There Will Be Blood in the Master. But my number 1 pick for the Best Picture nominees this year is Sinners. I really enjoyed this movie. I saw this movie in theaters twice at least. I thought the performances were incredible, particularly from Michael B. Jordan giving 2 performances in this movie. Haley Steinfeld, Delroy Lindo, Wunmi Masako, Jack O'Connell, Miles Catton. Everyone in this movie just does phenomenal work. The music incredible. I like how this movie just has a lot going on and everything just blends so perfectly. A movie like this probably wouldn't have worked if it wasn't for like Ryan Coogler just going in there and just being like, here's what I want to do with this movie. I feel like in the wrong hands, this could have easily just fallen apart, but everything about this movie just works. The only gripe I really have is the mid-credit scene, which is a little too long, but I do think that it's still very important in the movie overall. So even my biggest gripes about the movie, I still wouldn't remove, and that says a lot about this movie. I put it as my favorite movie of the year. It has the most nominations at the Academy Awards, which I did not expect the first time I saw it, but I'm really excited that it did. I would prefer seeing this winning over One Battle After Another, but I think One Battle After Another is going to take over. But that kind of brings me to something that I'm really excited about the Oscars this year, is that there's really no clear frontrunner for a lot of these categories. Every moment there's like a new frontrunner. Like, it seemed like One Battle After Another was going to be the frontrunner, but now they're saying Sinners is the frontrunner. Or how Timothée Chalamet was the frontrunner for Best Actor, but because of his comments, now you see people going for Michael B. Jordan. I'm like, okay, this could be fascinating. And it seems like there's a new Best Supporting Actor or Best Supporting Actress every day now. And it's like, okay, is it going to be Tiana Taylor or Amy Madigan? Or is it going to be Sean Penn or Delroy Lindo or Stellan Skarsgård? It's going to be a very fascinating show overall, and I can't wait to see who wins. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this year's Best Picture nominees? How would you rank them from your least favorite to your favorite? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.